Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Dig In podcast. I am joined today by a friend of Dig's, but also I think a friend of mine. I feel like, Liz, we've been able to kind of bond and spend some time at some events. So I'm so glad that you were able to join us today. I have Liz Ackerley, Senior Director, Strategic Insights and Analytics from Danone with us today. So welcome, welcome. I'm thrilled you're here.
Yeah, thanks. I'm so excited to be here. I do consider you a friend as well.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. You give the best renovation advice. So, I'm taking that to heart. So I'm going to toss an impromptu question at you. What's a job you would be terrible at?
In my office, I think the idea of keeping the budget is one that that while I am very conscious of our budget, I'm also one that is like, isn't there a little forgiveness we can have? We need a little, don't we have to throw a little bit of money at this? So I think the finance organization is they love me, but they also hate me. So I think that's not one that I would be the first person to be asked to
Yeah.
join.
We all have gifts, and that's okay that you have other gifts. Let's talk about some of those gifts. Walk us through your background and your current role at Danone.
Yeah, so I have been in the insights world for a very long time, and kind of in my whole career, starting out as a young person right out of college in the agency side of market research, but quickly realized that I wanted to spend more of my time with brands and, really in the day to day. So I moved to L'Oreal, loved my time in beauty. Beauty is a great category to work in, but also knew that it would be important for me to, think of what is the next industry I might kind of jump into. So I moved from L'Oreal, which is where I worked in beauty, to Danone, which I keep my French companies very close. And have been with Danone for the last 12 years with a number of different roles. Within BUs, I worked in the yogurt BU for probably eight of these 12 years. And then most recently work in a very fun, agile enterprise view in our strategic insights and analytics team, which has been a really fun and interesting new exploration of kind of how do we think about portfolio? How do we think about growth? How do we think about those larger strategic kind of growth engines that we need to think through as a company that really sit with my team. So we also do a lot of capabilities in my team to make sure that we're staying best in class. So just another view in the world of insights in the last few years.
Yeah. Well, that's a fun place for you to be. And I think that's the place we're going to dig into a little bit because you have a really great story to share about a capability that you have developed in that world. So our listeners do crave inspiration from other leaders. And I think one of the best ways to inspire is to tell a story. So, talk to us about this development of the Consumer Love program and globally, what does that mean at Danone? Where did it start? How did that idea originate?
Yeah, I think it started with a bit of self-reflection or organizational reflection. And I think it was at a time where it felt like we'd lost a little bit of that consumer centricity. And obviously, as insight professionals, we know how critical that is, but it's also critical to understand when you feel that there's something gone wrong. And I think part of it had to do with COVID, right? Not getting out and doing as much work in the same ways that we had done it before. Some of it was budget. Some of it was transformation. We'd gone through a lot of change. And I think just in that reflection of how important building consumer empathy is across the organization. We also had new leadership who kind of gave us this, kind of in their reflection of us as we were, really challenging us with that ask. We have the consumer empathy muscle that we thought we did. So it really started there with that self-reflection, and we've built a program globally because this was not just one region's issue. It was definitely one that was something we wanted to tackle across the globe. And so building that capability has been something I've been personally really excited to be a part of, but also very close at hand in kind of developing in tandem with our global organization.
Yeah. So what does the program entail? And did you have to kind of approach it in a new differentiated way?
Yeah, I mean, I think you can imagine anything that when we say a global program just
Yeah.
comes with a lot of baggage. There's always a lot of hardships that can go there. But I think the program, because it was so meaningful to this group of people, i.e. the Strategic Insights and Analytics organization, and we knew what it meant if we could pull this off. It was one of those, it was a passion project more than it was this like, oh gosh, this thing we have to do or implement or take from global and kind of do. And it really was cross collaborative. And the biggest thing was the fact that we had such strong advocacy from our leaders and our highest leader, global CEO. So it doesn't hurt when you have that, because it
Yeah.
opens up doors for, from that budget that I'm not so great at keeping track of, from a budget perspective, from a time perspective, and just from that creating that sense of importance of this program. So I would say that one of the first things that was critical was kind of finding um, the kind of partner and the tool and the capability that was going to help us do this. Because one of the things that we figured out initially was, we all want to be out and talking to consumers. We all want to be able to do these things, but it becomes a time and a money and a resource kind of constraint that always kind of hampers that real desire. So we found a partner that was willing to kind of pilot with us, and in that partnership, we co-developed this program, and we named it Consumer Love, because something also has to have a very fun and lovable title. And it's really, people centricity at the end of the day. It's not only consumers for us, it's doctors, it's patients, it's really people that we're talking to. And by kind of evaluating and understanding how we would build this at scale across the globe, really opened up our ability to kind of do this in the right way.
Yeah, definitely. Well, a good branding exercise, right? What are you going to call it to get people on board and make it memorable, et cetera? I often say that it probably says something about my personality, that my favorite thing to ask about is what went wrong? Like, where were the hiccups? Where did you get tripped up? Because like you said, any global endeavor is going to have its associated challenges. Is there something specific that came up where you had to pivot or find a problem solving?
Yeah, I think we thought that everybody, we work with consumers all the time, right? We interview, we talk, we know how to, because the part of this program was not just developing a program where insights professionals and people within marketing and categories organizations who are used to this kind of consumer interaction. It wasn't just built for them. It was built for actually building empathy within the entire organization. So take a person in finance, or take the person in demand planning, or whatever you name it, part of the organization, for them to feel comfortable with kind of this interaction. It wasn't always, there was actually, they were more scared than anything else, and
Yeah.
kind of like, ooh, you really want me to do what? So building some of those templated ways and discussion guides and things that could help them, and really understanding that this isn't about a right or wrong answer. Actually, data, we use a lot of consumer connects for data, right? For sure. That's my job every day. But these were more for understanding, building that rapport, kind of feeling what you feel by talking to a consumer.
Is there an especially memorable anecdote you have where you feel like the program was clearly on display? It was really working for you?
Yeah, I think one of the most impactful parts of this program wasn't actually giving this program and giving this kind of opportunity for categories or marketing or strategic insights and analytics members to kind of interact with consumers, because we do that. We do that a lot. We do that all the time. Yeah. I think one of the most impactful to me, and certainly, of the program, was when we were talking with some of the non-traditional people across the organization who this was also developed for, from an empathy building perspective, like someone in the supply chain team. They had the opportunity to talk to a mom about her purchasing of her infant formula. And I don't know if you remember, there was an infant formula crisis, and they were talking about how emotional it was for them when they would go to the store and there wasn't something to feed their baby. And while that supply chain person had heard that from us and from people and, or in the news, actually hearing it from the mom was something that, they told me, and coming out of it, that it's changed the way that they have made decisions in their day to day, because they have that mom in the back of their head. And I think we can resonate with that well, because those of us who have been in the insights world, we have those moments. We remember those experiences from consumers, but this was new for many of the people across the organization. So it was super impactful.
I love that story. Excellent impact. How do you keep a program like this interesting, insightful? How do you keep it kind of top of mind?
Yeah, I think this idea of having advocacy from the top certainly helps, because we've been able to engage at that GM level, and having people see them engaging in this program definitely gives it its weight, for sure. So that helps. I think we've also made a fair attempt at kind of keeping it in the news, if you will. Swag, I will tell you, is always an important part of any launch, right? So when we think about, we do have t-shirts, we do have kind of pens and things that are around the offices that are reminders, for sure. And we do bring it to town halls here and there. One of the most tangible ones, though, is we actually have a kind of, making things a game or making things a competition. Never hurts either. When we think about, we have quarterly kind of moments where we can actually tell what business units are actually using it the most. We're not forcing that really, but we can see that. But we can also encourage them to say, okay, whoever does the most, we've started to build a brand book. We wanted to give, if you've had this many conversations on your brand or in your category, we can kind of build that information, because one of the key functionalities is also very much like an AI summary. They're not everyone is a insights professional building a great top line
Right.
final report at the end, but we have ways that we can share back the data. So we can, we gamify it a bit also to make sure that it stays current and fun for
Yeah.
them.
Yeah, well, it makes it actionable, memorable, all those things that you want. I really am curious to know, how do you measure success of this type of program? Because you probably know, one of our DIG colleagues, Rob Volpe, he's developed these types of empathy programs for so many clients. And I think he has, seen it play out in different ways. How does your organization measure the success of this type of program?
And I love Rob. He's a very, very dear friend of the Danone community for sure, with the work we've done together. I think we are in the early stages of that. I will very much admit, in
Mhm.
terms of, for us right now, success is that we have what feels like and what we can see as excitement and engagement, right? There's two key critical kind of metrics that we have. I think over time it's this idea of not only, nice to have, I think it's becoming critical, right?
Yeah.
Becoming critical for the organization will be the way that we have seen, that we feel we have then met our success criteria. I think where we're trying to go with this is, imagine that, and this happens in other organizations, so this isn't like it can't happen, but imagine that there is the KPI connected to your objectives, right? In terms of, you must kind of have an interaction at, and this isn't just for the categories and marketing and teams that are connected, you must have a consumer connect moment X number of times a year, as part of a KPI. That is one that we are really striving to get to, so that we have that real kind of measure. We
Yeah.
do, like I mentioned, we can see who's using it, how much they're using it. So we have those measures. We're not actually kind of using them as success criteria yet, because we're still in the infancy days of being just happy and excited with the success of engagement at this.
Well, I think that that's a great way to motivate. And, some of that creates some competition too, because the people in supply chain don't want to be outdone by the folks in finance,
And
right?
you'll
So,
also say, like, it's the leaders. The leaders don't want to be like, they don't want to be the
right.
leader that didn't, oh, leader X
Didn't-
has talked to how many consumers? Because
Yeah.
again, we know we want to make sure that leaders have the opportunity. They're busy. They don't have that. They remember the days when they used to go and listen to consumers, and they
Yeah.
feel disconnected. They actually, have been much, maybe not more surprisingly excited by this than I thought, but they are definitely excited by this
Yeah.
opportunity as well.
Oh, that's great. So many takeaways that you've shared about this, but what would you say is your biggest, takeaway from this experience of developing the program?
I think it's the emotion behind this program actually was our biggest kind of seller, because I
Mhm.
think we were able to show kind of the why it was important, rather than it just being this, because like I think I said in the beginning, global endeavors can often feel like they're placed on you when you are a region as part of a global kind of program. We did everything we could to kind of minimize some of that, to make sure that it was more of a, very clear understanding the why, and connecting it to, the things that we know are important, which is, we talk about it a lot, being consumer
Yeah.
centric, really making this the way that you can be that for the organization really helped us, sell in, kind of embed, and make it feel like it might last for us.
Absolutely. Well, what an amazing accomplishment to add to your long storied resume. I love that, and great embodiment of empathy in action, which is what we love to see. So, thank you for sharing that story. We are going to turn to you as a thought leader, Liz. You've got some pretty cool, passionate points of view. We've chatted a little bit about this one, but I can't wait for you to share the power of mentorship and coaching. I'd love to kind of know where that started with you. Is this something that's just always been part of how Liz operates, or is it at a different part in your professional career did you develop a different appreciation for it?
I think I've always been kind of that mama bear mentor leader.
Yeah.
That has been who I have always been, even when I was junior and the person was an intern, right? Like, so that part of this story is longer than kind of the mentorship and kind of coaching part. I think over the course of my career, as you know, you're often told, it would be important, it would be good for you to get a mentor. It'd be good for you to, coaches come kind of later usually, or they have in my experience. But this idea of finding a mentor, it was a game changer for me when I was kind of when I found the first one that stuck. I had a few before and they were great and they gave me, in different parts of my over the different companies and parts of my career. But when I finally found the one that stuck for me, and it was actually we do a mentorship programs where you can kind of be placed with people, and it's like,
Hmm.
people come together and you're placed. And when I was placed with her, she didn't know her, she didn't know me. We were, you look for someone that's, 2 levels above or something like that. And it was transformational in the way that I could, have conversations from someone who she's not from in the insights world, but from
Hmm.
my organization or from a CPG organization that, really had that, way to help me through some of the challenges, or even, just help and guidance. And, am I thinking about this right? Am I approaching this? That outside kind of body and person that I could go to was really transformational. When we think about coaching always felt guarded to me. It was like, you only got it when you were like, really,
In trouble.
yeah, either in trouble or, so high performing that they were like giving you this thing. And those were the two ways. But then I
Right.
realized once I finally, I asked and I kind of pushed for one. And when I got the coach, again, it was later in my career and more for kind of advancement, right? That was more of like, I was looking to like, here's areas that I've heard of opportunities of mine. Here, I would like to work on these things. Can you help me? And they had the really, they have the more structured way of giving you that real advice and things to go work on, which is different than a mentor, because a mentor gives you, advice from their experience, but it's not from a coach's kind of technical expertise.
Hmm.
So I actually have both. And I utilize them both. And I really appreciate this idea of coaching. And one of the things that we've been, and why it's so top of mind, and one is the thing I'm kind of, my passionate point of view at the moment, we're actually working with a company that we're thinking with digital coaching, right? So that democratizes this idea. Before it was, either expensive or hard, and you had to find it was very hard. Now we've opened this digital coaching kind of app, essentially, that has like the world, right, has made it so much more convenient, so much more open for people, has really been beneficial to people that have like me had felt it was guarded or kind of
Yeah.
privileged in the
Not
past.
accessible. Yeah. That's really cool. And I love that, idea of technology kind of helping us out with this thing that, was difficult to scale before. And I also just wonder, can you think of a piece of advice you did get from either a mentor or a coach that just really changed how you thought about something?
Yeah, I think, this idea, and, you work on yourself. I have great self-awareness. I have a lot of energy. I have a lot of kind of, I'm sort of bigger. I'm a big personality. I've learned over time, one of the best pieces of advice was kind of when you're coming into that first interaction with someone, or not even first, when you're in a meeting or when you're in a group setting, meet the energy level of the people or the person that you're working with. Think about, who you are, and don't lose yourself, but think about the energy level that the other person has, and try to meet it, match it, because, even though I'm high energy and I feel it's positive and exciting, depending on the person on the other side, they're not actually able to maybe absorb all of me at that same moment. I have to kind of think about that. So it's something I do all the time. I often think about, how, that kind of energy between the two people that I'm with.
Yeah, that's interesting. I do think I've had a lot of both mentors and mentees in my career, and I think I have freaked some of my mentees out. If I come in like super hot on something and like have this, a lot of energy around it, and they don't match that, it's a really good point. What's your hot take on the future of the food industry? I have been so excited about asking you something that big. So, what do you think? What's
Yeah.
coming?
Oh, we are, and I think, we've done a lot of work together in this space. We are so obsessed with this world of GLP-1 in terms of what it is and how it's transforming what we've known as the food and beverage industry, for good, for bad, for obesity, for health, for all the things. I think one of the things that we're watching though now is in terms of, what it means outside of kind of just the space that it sits in, which I mean, the protein space. Protein is, we have listened to protein for years. It's important. There's an exponential growth at the moment, and all, you'll see. I just yesterday had a Khloe Kardashian protein popcorn. So
Oh,
it is.
there you
You
go.
can find this across every aisle, but I think it's more important because of GLP-1, because of the protein important conversation that's in market. But the other thing, in that too, we're also talking. It's like there's a self-awareness or an awareness of women's health that is the space of women's health, is the other, what I see as an incredible boom that I know at Danone are trying to get very, smart about, in terms of, guess what, 50% of the world's population happens to be women. What are we doing, and how are we, thinking about health and wellness for a particular group like that, as it relates to, and it is protein and creatine and all the important things that are required. And, obviously Danone, this is the spaces that we're in. So we are, really excited about the journey ahead.
Well, I know that will be an exciting exploration for you to keep on going. So we're going to move to the final dig. This is all about you as a person, Liz. So just feel free to give us the consumer or person answer to this stuff. What's the last product or service you bought on impulse?
Yeah, I mean, everything comes back just to the renovations. I mean, it
Tell me
all
it's
is.
an expensive tile, please.
Tell me it's a hamper, a bath. It's a laundry hamper that was I don't even know that I don't even know that I actually need this, but I was on Pottery Barn. I was looking for something else and it was so adorable and I decided to buy it. And I was not clear how expensive hampers are and or that many people keep them in their bathroom because this is what it told me. And I said, oh, this is, not where I keep mine. So I was having a whole
Yeah.
question and conversation to myself about where I might keep this new hamper that I may or may not need.
Well, do we care if you need it? I
No.
mean, if it brings you joy, let's do it. Yeah, I'm excited. Well, I need to see a picture of that as well. My last impulse was these really special, like artistic doorknobs that cost way too much for the functionality that they really have in my life. But you know what? They're beautiful. So I'm
And
excited
if
for
they
that.
bring you joy, these are why impulse purchases, I always have a reason. They're always have a good reason because if they're
Yeah.
bringing you joy, I think they were important.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that ties to my next question. Is there a category or a brand that you could sort of rationalize any price point for? You just have to have it in your life?
And maybe it's a category more than a brand. Sneakers, and
Mhm.
sneakers and shoes in general. I think I'm not going to say females love no, love shoes, but I do. And sneakers it's not just for me anymore. It's my son is now obsessed with sneakers. So now it's
Yeah.
like an obsession across the household of I don't think I needed that next pair of Adidas with pink stripes. And I already had the ones with the silver stripes. And then my
Mhm.
son is on a whole nother level of caliber and as it relates to sneakers and knowledge about the space. That's a category for which is prevalent in this
Yeah.
household.
Your sneaker household. So my son, he's 13. He has now started ironing his Jordans where he's got like this
The
whole
crease.
situation with, yeah.
You have to have a crease protector. I'm
Okay.
in it. I'm in it.
Okay. Well, I had to learn, but you know what? I loved the initiative. I mean, he learned where the iron is and how to set it up. I mean, it was life skills
You're like the
basically
next
after
one
that.
is a white button-up shirt you need to iron. That'll come
Yep.
in helpful for the
I don't know. I've abandoned ironing in all parts of my life. So I love this one. Brands have distinct personalities. Is there a brand that you would date and a brand that you would marry? And they can be different brands.
I think I would love today, and I'm going to keep this from a Danone brand perspective. We have, International Delight. It's such a fun brand. It has so much personality. It's one that it's for those who wouldn't know, might not know. It's coffee creamer. Coffee is a loving moment, a reward moment for most people, and so that brand with that personality, it's the one. It's definitely date. I don't know that I would marry, but definitely date
Okay.
from a
Yep.
want
Mhm.
to have the fun, right? We're dating for sure. Mary, I think, I don't know, for some reason, Patagonia just came into my mind in terms of trustworthy, responsible, purposeful.
Mhm.
And I think that feels, maybe that, I don't know, fun. I think it can be fun too. I feel like there's a lot of
Yeah.
outdoor and a lot of
Yeah. A
kind of
lot of
moments,
adventure there.
adventure
Yeah.
in that. So it's not like, just often be the old married woman. It's actually there's still a
Yeah.
fun part of Patagonia in my life.
Yeah, yeah, something you could be loyal to for years and
Correct.
years. I
For
love that.
years.
That's a great brand example. And so finally, Liz, what keeps you inspired at work? You've been at Danone 12 years, which I think is love to see these types of tenures. What keeps you inspired?
There's always change. I think maybe it's part of my personality too. The only thing you can expect in life is that there will be something that changes. It's kind of the mentality we have at Danone. I think that the change that we've had over time, is one that is we have there's nothing stale about the way that like even the business or the organization or our products have been. And I think I'm really lucky to be working in this kind of agile enterprise type of role because we're thinking about the future. We're not, I get the opportunity to think about 5, 10 years from now rather
Yeah.
than, where I have done it all, but I work, in the day or the looking at last week or thinking about tomorrow. And there's always a fire drill. There's always that's part of the job. But I'm really lucky now that I'm working in this kind of thinking about the future, thinking about the next growth moments, thinking about the platforms that we should be in. And that's super inspiring because it means that, there's only, the road ahead. There's only the runway that we have. Part of it I get to help kind of choose and craft. So I feel lucky to be inspired by that for sure.
Yeah. Well, it keeps it fresh. New, opportunities and challenges every day is what it sounds like. So
Absolutely.
never dull. That's the very diplomatic way that I like to say some of the chaos can be. Well, thank you for sharing your story, your background, and just your energy with us. It's been a real pleasure having you join me today.
Yeah, it's been great. Thank you.